Three things to like with the Adidas AMPLIMOVE. Number one, the price point. The shoe cost $70, and now you can typically find them marked down for like 55, 60. So for how this shoe performs in the gym, I feel like that price point is really solid, especially if you're trying to spend considerably less than $100. So whether you're on a budget or if you're just a beginner in the gym, this model's price works really well for a lot of different asks when it comes to financial constraints. The second thing to like with this shoe is its overall performance in the gym. So this model, think about it as like the little brother of the Adidas Rapidmove 2 ADV or HIT model. This model is essentially the same construction as that shoe. It just has slightly more budget-friendly materials. And now that said, I don't think it really hinders this shoe's overall performance. We have a medium density EVA foam midsole, so it does a decent job for overall stability purposes, and it gives you a little bit of bounce. And with this full rubber tread, you also get good grip. So when it comes to cross training and lifting, especially for the generalist or the beginner who might be considering this shoe, or even just the more casual HIT or class focused individual, honestly, I feel like the shoe has done a really good job despite not having as many more premium materials as the other models. And so that said, if you're somebody who likes to lift, do some HIT, do some short runs on a weekly basis, this can be a great option to look into. The third thing to like with this shoe is if you like a little bit more arch support in your training shoes, this can be a really good option. So we do have a pretty aggressive taper here through the midfoot. So that's not going to be the best for wide feet or for flat feet. I'll talk about that in a second. But for my arch lovers out there who like a little bit more structure and support to their shoe, this can be a good thing. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I have with the AMPLIMOVE. All right, so three cons that I have with the AMPLIMOVE is number one, I kind of just touched on this, but with the super aggressive midfoot taper and with the forefoot taper up here, despite having a slightly wider platform, this model can feel pretty snug at times. Now I have an E to double E with foot and a normal arch. For me, this shoe was doable. I definitely noticed the snugness of the forefoot, especially with the upper volume and the midfoot, but it wasn't a complete turnoff. Now that said, if you have a flat foot and you hate any form of arch in your training shoes, steer clear of this model. And if you are comfortably pushing, I would say a 2E plus foot width, you will also want to steer clear of this shoe. And I don't think if you size up, you'll still have enough room. So definitely take that into account before buying. The second con that I have with this shoe is anytime you have a budget-friendly model like this with a thicker stack height and generally lesser quality foams that are less tuned to be a little bit more flexible and playful, you're gonna have a stiffer ride. And so that said, if you invest in this shoe, keep in mind that it is going to take a bit of time to break in. This midsole can feel a little stiff out of the box, so if you want to expedite that, you can kind of work it with your hands. That is like kind of a tip that I will give folks who want to break in their shoes quicker. I would say expect like a 1 to 2 week break-in time with this model before they start feeling a little bit better. And that's where the more premium model starts to take the edge when it comes to the nuance between these shoes, even though kind of skeleton-wise, they are very similar. The third con that I have with the shoe, and if you've watched this channel and you've watched all my budget-friendly shoe reviews, you probably know this is coming, but the lack of tongue gusset can be pretty annoying. Now, luckily, we do have a padded mesh tongue and it's pretty wide. So if you lay this flat, and you get the laces right and the security right when you're putting them on, it shouldn't be an issue. But anytime you lack a tongue gusset, you can start to have a bit of tongue movement. And so if you like to wear your shoes a little bit looser when you're training, you're gonna notice this more and it might irk you a little bit more. So it's not a complete hindrance of this shoe's performance, but with more budget-friendly shoes, generally speaking, you will lack a gusset, and the AMPLIMOVE is no exception here. But now let's talk about the performance of this model. To break down the performance of this shoe, I'll discuss how they do for lifting, cross-training, short runs, and daily wear. When it comes to lifting, overall stability threshold. So if you're training with free weights, I would say probably cap your lifting to about 275 to 315 pounds. Once you start to exceed that, you will start to notice a little bit more compression. Plus with this thicker midsole and the toe spring here, it's not gonna be your best shoe for maxing out your squats or your deadlifts. But if you're staying under those thresholds, honestly, I feel like you'll be fine with the stability of the shoe. Doing power cleans up to 225 pounds in this shoe, it felt decent, honestly. I was actually a little bit shocked by its performance. And you know what's funny is I actually feel like the shoe, because the materials are obviously not as premium and not as tuned to be dialed for HIT training, I actually find that this model is a little bit more stable than the more premium Rapidmove ADV 2. So if you're a generalist in the gym and if you just want a shoe, you know, for some general strength, hypertrophy workouts, some machine work and whatnot, this shoe should do a decent job for stability context. Plus with this full rubber outsole and the upper construction, you don't get a ton of spillover, which is nice for any form of explosive lifting. And on machines, I don't think you're gonna have any slip issues for like leg press, hack squats and whatnot. You should be fine in this shoe. When it comes to cross training, I actually like this shoe a lot as well. It does a decent job at locking your foot down when you're training. So when you're doing multi-directional stuff, the upper does a decent job. This mesh, I think, has enough reinforced material to lock that foot down. And then again, once this midsole breaks in, it actually feels decent despite having a lower price point. Generally, medium density EVAs like this can start to feel clunky once they get this thick. But this model, I think once it breaks in, it will get a bit more forgiving and do a decent job, especially if you're paying 60 bucks for this model. And then when it comes to breathability, the shoe also does a decent job as well. Like you can kind of see the ventilation of this shoe. I think it breathes better than other budget-friendly models that I've used as of late. So for cross training and just general HIIT workouts, this model should also deliver for your needs. For short runs, the shoe is just okay. It's not going to be really tuned, I would say, to be like more of a hybrid model. But if you're just running 400 meters, 800 meters, or just a mile at a time, the shoe should do a decent job. It will also be fine for stair steppers or walking at an incline. It will be comfortable enough for that in my opinion. So overall for short runs, the shoe does a decent job. It's just not going to be your most optimized hybrid shoe or your training shoe for longer runs if that's what you're after. For daily wear, the shoe is just okay as well. Like it's decently comfortable once it breaks in, but my issues with this model for all day daily wear is with the arch here and with the narrower toe box. I find them to be a little bit limiting. I found them to be a bit more comfortable after wearing them for like 3 to 4 hours. I wore them to a workout and then to do a bunch of errands one day and be on my feet at the store. And this shoe started to fall a little bit more short in the afternoon. You know, when you're getting a little bit more tired, you've been on your feet all day, you start to notice things like the arch of your shoes, your narrower toe box and stuff a little bit more. So overall for lifting, I would give this shoe a strong 7.58 out of 10, understanding that it's not necessarily going to be your best shoe for maxing out your lifts. For cross training, I would give this shoe an 8.5 out of 10. For short runs, I would give them a 7.58 out of 10. And then for daily wear, I would give them a 7 out of 10. So when it comes to the sizing of this shoe, I went true to size. So I traditionally wear a size US 10 and I have an E to double E with foot and a normal arch. This shoe feels fine for my foot anatomy. And so that said, if you have a narrower foot, true to size should be a safe bet. If you have a medium with foot, true to size should be a safe bet. If you have a wide foot, like E to double E width, you should also be safe going true to size in this model. If you have a 3E plus foot width, I would say steer clear of this shoe. I don't think you're going to get enough room here with the toe box and its pretty aggressive taper. And then two other thoughts here is if you have a very thick forefoot and you like a little bit more room in your shoes, that could also be problematic in this model. We don't have a removable insole and this upper sits a little bit lower, so you might feel a bit constrained in that context. And then also for flat feet, once again, you do have a pretty aggressive arch here. So if you don't like arch in your training shoes, you will likely want to steer clear of this model as well. All right, so now let's answer the question, who should buy the AmpleMove? Number one, if you're balling on a budget, I'm telling you right now, this shoe ain't bad. There's a reason this shoe I think is one of the higher rated shoes on Adidas training shoes in their little market because it performs surprisingly well for a decent price. Number two, if you like a bit more structure with your training shoes, you like wider platforms, a bit more arch, this model can also be an awesome option. And then number three, I think if you're somebody who likes to blend all of the modalities together in a single week, you like to do some short runs in the form of intervals, some lifting, and then also take a class or do some HIIT workouts here and there, this can also be a really good option to go with. Now, who shouldn't buy this shoe? If you have exceptionally wide feet or flat feet, pass on this model. Number two, if you want a training shoe that's a little bit more optimized for heavier strength training, you're going to want to look into better models. I would say look into the Adidas Drop Set Trainer 3, or if you could find the 2, which I think is a GOAT, cop those models. And then number three, if you're somebody who has a very thick forefoot and you like to take out the insoles of your shoes to give you more space, that would definitely be something that I would be concerned with before investing in this shoe. So if that is you and you buy this shoe, keep in mind that you may need to return them because there could be some sizing discrepancies there. All right, so now what shoes is this most similar to? I had somebody ask about adding this section into reviews, so let's do it. So two models that come off the top of my mind right now where this model is very similar to them is number one, the Nike MC Trainer from Nike. That model comes out at about $80. It's also designed to be that more budget-friendly, well-rounded pick that you can use for strength training with some HIIT, etc. So this model is very similar to that in that regard. And then number two, the Reebok Nano Gym. Now the Nano Gym is going to be a little bit more pliable and plush with its ride, but it's also built for, you know, your more generalist, your budget-friendly shoppers who are looking for a shoe for strength training and some HIIT workouts. That's where this model is going to feel very similar. And then if we're talking about shoes from Adidas, the Rapidmove 2 and the Rapidmove 2 ADV are going to be your most similar shoes to the AmpleMove. When it comes to the weight, heel, toe drop, and insole in the AmpleMove, for my size 10 shoe here, we have a weight of 11.15 ounces. The heel to toe drop of this shoe is not disclosed on Adidas site, but if I had to guess based off of the other shoes I've reviewed from Adidas and all these other companies, this model probably sits between 4 and 6 millimeters comfortably if I had to guess, probably more close to 6 than 4 though. When it comes to the insole, this shoe does not have a removable insole. It is held in with adhesive, so you can take it out, but if you decide to take that insole out, please keep in mind that it may not go back in flush with the adhesive, or it might feel awkward on the foot if you are going to start wearing them without the insole for the first few sessions. All right, so now let's break down the construction of the AmpleMove. Up here on the forefoot, we have a synthetic overlay that covers the toe box. It gives it a bit more structure. We also have an extended outsole lip down here at the bottom of this shoe. Looking at the upper construction, we have a mesh that runs throughout the forefoot into the midfoot. We have some textile overlays here on the lateral side with that Adidas branding. And then on the medial side, we also have some textile overlays with Adidas branding. Back here on the boot, we have a faux leather cover here, and this little training guy back here is heat pressed on. And then looking at the tongue construction, we have a wider padded mesh tongue. And again, this is not gusseted, so it can fold over and move a little bit when you're training if you wear these looser. And then when it comes to the eyelets, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that go up with a 7th back here for lace lock and a traditional lacing system. You have a medium density foam EVA midsole throughout the entirety of this shoe. And then on the outsole, you have a full rubber tread here with a few breaks in the forefoot and the heel to help give this shoe a bit more flexibility. Once again, the insole is not removable in this shoe, but if you have additional questions on the construction of this model, drop a comment down below. To wrap this review up, would I buy this shoe again? Honestly, I feel like if I only had $75 to spend on training shoes and I wanted the most well-rounded pick on the market, I would buy this shoe again. They have been exceptional for the price, and I feel like for the generalist, this can be a really good option, and for beginners, this can also be a great option to explore. If you have additional questions on the AmpleMove, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.